Hello everyone, I'm Michaela Kathleen and I'm here today with a book unhaul. I had 2 book hauls recently, one a pretty average size for me, less than 10 books, but the other one quite large, like 30 books. So I figured it was time for an unhaul to balance the scales an itty bitty teeny tiny bit. So I have 13 books to unhaul today, so let's get into it. Starting with The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I feel a little bit bad unhauling a book from the Hunger Games universe, but it just wasn't very good, and I just kind of don't want to acknowledge or remember it as Hunger Games canon, so away it goes. Next I have Bridge of Clay by Marcus Zuzak, which I just did not understand this book. It is such a chonker, so slow, so boring, so all over the place. I just didn't get it. Marcus Zuzak wrote one of my favorite books of all time with The Book Thief, but this one was a huge letdown. I held on to it for kind of a long time just because it fit nicely on my kind of adult serious books shelf, but that shelf is finally starting to fill up a bit, so this one is the first to go. Next I have The Treatment and the Remedy from the Program series. I really liked the first book in this series quite a bit, but it really went off the rails from there, and then also like it turned out to be 3 sets of like companion duologies rather than a continuing story, so that didn't help either. So yeah, I DNF'd this series at the 3rd book, and I am all unhauling books 2 and 3, and I am gonna keep book 1 because like I said, I did enjoy that one quite a bit. So sadly someone's gonna be looking through a free little library probably at some point and find these 2 and be like, where's the first one? But oh well. Next I'm unhauling Dear Emma by Katie Heaney. This is another book that I held on to for quite a while, and unlike with Bridge of Clay, where I knew I didn't like it and that it would definitely get unhauled once the shelf filled up, this is one that I just kind of medium liked. Like, I liked it well enough, and so I held on to it. I wasn't really intending on unhauling it, but my kind of light, fluffy YA shelves started filling up, and I had to get rid of something, and I was like, you know what? This one was just kind of mediocre. Next, I have Again But Better by Christine Riccio. I had a whole lot of hope for this book because it is a booktuber book. Yeah, I just didn't really enjoy it. The writing honestly just kind of felt a little bit immature to me. I think I might have given it like 3 stars because it was okay. It wasn't terrible, but it just also definitely wasn't good enough to hang on to. Next, I have Alex and Eliza by Melissa de la Cruz. And I read this one recently, and I wasn't so sure if I would like it since it is very much a romance, and I'm not a huge, just straight up romance reader. But since it was Alexander Hamilton, I had hope. But I think the writing was just kind of poor on top of it being a boring romance. So I am unhauling this one and not continuing with the series. Next I have Save Your Breath by Melinda Lee. This is the final book in like a mystery series, but they're like all companions. I got this one in the Scribbler subscription box, and with it being the final book in the series, and also I don't think I even would have enjoyed the series, I had no interest in keeping this one. Again, I think I had it on my shelves for a while just because, once again, I'm not super into thriller mystery books, so I don't have a lot of books on that shelf. And so, once again, I was like, meh, I'll keep it until the shelf fills up. Well, the shelf is filled up. Next, I have Harley in the Sky by Akemi Dawn Bowman, which was another subscription book box. This one was from Once Upon a Book Club, and so I feel kind of bad getting rid of it because it's a nice hardcover, and I like hanging on to books that I got from unique places like subscription boxes or conventions or what have you, and I've got the signature and everything, but I just didn't really enjoy the book, and once again the shelf that I had it on is kind of filling up, so sadly I'm parting with this one, even though I do like that it's like a nice hardcover from a subscription box. Next I am unhauling Leviathan by Scott Westerfeld. Scott Westerfeld is one of my favorite authors, and I was massively looking forward to this one, but I think it just was for a little bit younger of an audience than I was expecting. So this one was kind of a disappointment for me, and sadly I'm unhauling it and discontinuing with the series. Next I have A Lovely War by Julie Berry. This was one of my most anticipated reads this year. I read this in January, I'm pretty sure. I was so looking forward to it because it so reminded me of The Book Thief. The Book Thief is a World War II story told by death, and this is a World War I and II story told by the Greek god Aphrodite. So I thought it was going to be a new favorite, but again, it was just a little bit too much romance for me, too slow, kind of boring. The Greek god element for me didn't really add much to the story. Next I have Cry the Beloved Country by Alan Paton. This is another subscription box book. I got this one from the Bibliophilic Excursions box, which each box is kind of themed for a different country each month. So this month it was South Africa, and I got Trevor Noah's book in this box, Born a Crime, which I loved, but this one I ended up DNFing. I just could not get into it. Oh, and I actually missed a book. I have 14 books, and the last two are books that I'm kind of currently reading, but I'm definitely gonna unhaul them both. It's a whole thing. But those books are Independent People and The Cellar. So I was reading Independent People, which was another Bibliophilic Excursions box. This box was Iceland, and like I was weirdly kind of interested in the story, even though I wasn't really enjoying the story. But it's very long and it's taking me forever to get through. It's definitely a bit of a slog, and so I had decided to DNF it and just move on to the next book on my list because this was just taking up too much of my time. And so the book I moved on to was The Cellar by Natasha Preston, which I didn't have high hopes for, and I actually just started reading it this morning, and I read like 50 pages, and as I kind of expected, the writing was just kind of poor. And again, I'm not super into thrillers anyways, so even though I knew this one was going to be more fast-paced, I decided to go back to Independent People, which I still don't know if I might end up DNFing in the next couple of days. Regardless of whether or not I finish it, I'm definitely not going to reread it, which maybe means I should just DNF it. But anyways, so I'm definitely going to be unhauling both of these. This one I'm DNFing and I'm done with it. It's unhauled. This one I might finish reading it, but then I'm going to unhaul it. But regardless of all that, you can hear more of my thoughts on these two in my September wrap-up next week, because I will be done with them both and doing the wrap-up by that time. So yeah, you'll have to wait and see whether or not I ended up finishing this one or reading just a little bit more than where I'm at now and DNFing it after all. Right now I am 140 pages in out of close to 500. So yeah, I'm probably gonna DNF it. I've been in an unfortunate kind of reading slump, I feel, in the last couple of months, which doesn't happen to me often. And by that, I don't mean that I'm not reading. I'm just reading slowly, and there's been a lot of kind of disappointing reads of recent. But anyways, moving on from the sad business of unhauls and reading slumps to the quote for today's video, which is a quote from the movie Lincoln, and it goes, "The part assigned to me is to raise the flag, which, if there be no fault in the machinery, I will do. And when up, it shall be for the people to keep it up." That's my speech. I hope you enjoyed watching. Let me know down below if you've unhauled any books recently, and if your TBR is absolutely running away with you. Remember, words matter.